What is up, guys, and welcome to another Bojinjin vlog. How you doing? I'm doing great. I thought that I would kind of be a bit more fashionable in this entry, you know, because it tends to be the case that like I kind of throw on something and just kind of go out like in the moment of inspiration. But today, I made a bit more of an effort. But in any case, I hope you guys are well. In this entry, right, I would like to, if I may, kind of extend from what I was talking about last week, right? So last week's entry was about, you know, my latest insights into like kind of, you know, I talked about the two kind of major problems in society, loneliness and mediocrity, right? And how it's kind of ironic that as we kind of struggle to become more motivated and to become less lonely, that like the society that we find ourselves in is the very kind of cause of it, if you will. Like, so like the perspective I offered in that entry was to kind of view it as an opportunity to be like, okay, it's not entirely my fault. You know, like it is a perspective that, you know, yeah, you know, at one point, you know, humanity, you know, civilization had not developed as far, and as such, the society that, you know, people used to find themselves in was a lot more dangerous, and as such, like, there was a lot more kind of organic motivation, let's just say, to you know, to fix the society, to become safer, more fair, you know, and all of that stuff. But like the byproduct of that, you know, the irony is that like it takes away that motivation that we once had, you know, fearing for our lives and like and seeking connection so that we can feel secure against that harshness of life, you know, as it was. That we find ourselves in the most comfortable time that has ever been, like in human history, right? But the irony is that like it's now hard to connect with other people, and or rather that there isn't that organic motivation to do so, you know. There is like I guess it's kind of like a double-edged sword, you know, when you kind of move away from pressure and threats and survival and all that stuff to a more comfortable, you know, lifestyle, that like you do lose motivation in some ways. And in last week's entry, I talked about that. If you haven't checked it out, then I encourage you to check it out in case, you know, you might stumble on an insight for your own life. But in this entry, like, and at the end of that entry, I mentioned about pain, right? And pain as, so like, you know, with the kind of moving away from, you know, or going more towards a convenient and comfortable society, you know, and becoming even more so, in order to be motivated and to seek out human connection, we have to kind of like become more proactive in the way that we do this, right? So yes, in many ways, like we have become insensitive to energy, as I put it, like in the sense that like it's difficult to feel yourself in today's world with all of its, you know, regulations and procedures and systems and stuff like that. But like, again, the double-edged sword of that is, or rather like the other side of that sword is that there is so much opportunity, you know, like if you want to design a life that's centered around the things that you love, you know, it could be anything, like I said in that entry. It could be like games, anime, it could be like Game of Thrones, like, you know, whatever you're into, right? Whatever like kind of fantasy world you enjoy, you know, you can take that and create something like an intentional community using kind of principles and like features or like aspects from that thing that you love, and find a group of people who share in that kind of like common interest. And you can like design your life in such an interesting way, you know, like, so like, you know, we don't live in a world where we're chased by like monsters in the wilderness, and like we have to fear like incoming like sieges from like neighboring tribes and things like that. But we can say, okay, like, you know, let's make our lives more kind of, if we all like, you know, like if we all like the kind of like woodland elf, like, you know, Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit style, J.R. Tolkien, like kind of like fantasy world, then we can create an environment that facilitates that, and we can also like design the way that our lives work, because now we live in a world where like it's literally like there's more opportunity and possibility to do whatever you want and however you want to do it. Like the middle class dream is dead. I did an entry about that some time ago, right? Or it's not dead, but it's dying. Like it's like people don't have the luxury to just be like, oh yeah, I can just default to this path where like I just get a job, go to school, get a job, start a family. It's like people are forced to become more creative. That's the kind of, again, the double-edged sword of it is like people like who are married to this idea that like, I just want to live a comfortable life and not have to like, I don't want to rock the boat. People like that are being forced, and we all feel it. Like we're being forced to like change things up, because the things that used to work don't work anymore, right? But the flip side of that is that it also is an opportunity for us to be more creative in the way that we design our lives, right? And like proactivity, or like rather realizing that you have the power. If you are to go into the chaos of the future, then you realize that you can actually be like, okay, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to try to assume control of that and to control the direction in which my life goes, right? And that's the key for all of us who want to build a better life and want to lead the conscious, heart-centered path, right? Is to take the opportunity, take the reins of our lives, and to really own ourselves and to own, the future. If the future is chaos, then let us try to direct that chaos to creating brilliant things for ourselves and other people, right? So like it's a very exciting and scary time, right? And last entry was about that, right? So in this entry, and at the end of the entry I mentioned, so I was leading on to this idea of pain, right? So how do you get motivated? Well, I'm not saying, I wasn't saying in last week's entry to go and seek out danger, you should go into the wilderness and see if you can survive. Some people think that that's a good idea, and I'm not saying it's not, but I do believe that like when pain does come in your life, because it will, unfortunately, it's like even just something happening that isn't threatening or dangerous, but it just defies your expectations in a negative way. Like things didn't go according to plan. Even that's pain, right? But like, we age, like things happen, between us and other people. And it's like, we can take those moments of pain and we can use those as opportunities to be with the pain. So as I say, go in the direction of your joy, go in the direction of your darkness. Whenever darkness arises, you can be with it, right? And see the truth that it brings up into you. Some truths, they won't be savory, quote unquote, but like they will be yours. I don't like the life situation that I'm in. I don't like the people that I'm surrounded by. I don't like myself. I don't like the society, These kinds of things that come up during these times of like, of pain and suffering and internal disarray, right? That you have, dark nights of the soul, right? You can take those and you can be with those and be like, so this is what my soul is telling me, that I don't like this, that I don't like that, right? But more importantly, the more that you do it, and this is the same of joy or love, right? So like, there is this duality that I talk a lot about between joy and pain, light and dark, consciousness, unconsciousness. I mean, like, that's kind of different, consciousness and consciousness, but like joy and pain, love and darkness, right? There is this duality, and like you do the same with love, you learn to embrace it, or you realize that as you, or rather, you start off, making it kind of like it starts off like a project, if you will, right? So like you start off being like, okay, like I'm going to take Bo Jinjin's practical advice and go in the direction of my joy. What does this look like? Maybe this looks like I want to play more video games. I want to do more sports. I want to eat more delicious food. I want to find a partner. I want to explore my sexuality. Whatever it might be, right? We start to think of things and interest areas, and to devote more time and attention to those things, right? But slowly along the journey, right, we realize that as we engage in these things that we love, and as we connect more and more with our pain, and as we learn that life is an unfolding process, you know, that the breath is not just inhalation and exhalation, but rather it is a sustained motion that carries us throughout the entirety of our lives, right? We learn that life is an ongoing process. And so we learn that, like, the thing that arises behind the things that we love, and the pain that arises behind the situations, the arguments, the disputes, the disappointment, you know, the loss, you know, the poverty, right? We identify them as energy, right? And that becomes more and more forefront in our consciousness. We realize eventually, and in times of high vibration, because we do fluctuate, you know, we do, like, you know, I, as everyone else, fluctuates between high vibration and low vibration, right? You know, like, sometimes I feel like shit, and I'm like, the fuck my neighbors, you know, and things like that. But, like, when you're in high vibration, and, like, the more that you do it, like, the more this becomes, like, something that you understand, is that, like, the energy is your beacon, right? So, like, in a sense, and I've said this before, and, like, hopefully this clarifies for anyone who doesn't understand, or anyone watching, is, like, you realize that it isn't so much what you do, it's how you feel. It's the energy, right? Yes, you want to make sure that you do more activities and interests that you enjoy, right? And you can list those off, and it's really important to list them off. It really is. And it will help you in other areas in life if you list those off, because you'll be able to communicate them to other people. You'll be able to, like, design your lifestyle around those things. You'll be able to, like, design a career around those things. So yeah, absolutely list all of the physical interests that you have, like anime, games, spirituality, fitness, health, you know, all of these things, right? But, and I say, like, well, I think more that it's a balancing thing. You realize that, like, those things give rise to this feeling of love, this energetic expansion, right? But the expansion is what fuels these things, right? So you use these things to fuel your feelings of love, right? And then this feeling of love enables you to, I've called it home, right? So I made an entry about how the reason you're not XXX enough, right? In that video I said that it's because you don't own yourself yet. You know, you're still ashamed of your passions, your interests, your desires, you know, you haven't been honest with yourself enough, right? But the thing is, like, though, like, as you find that acceptance and ownership, that feeling, those feelings of love and expansion will cause you to automatically resonate more with the world in a loving way. So you'll develop new interests, you'll become more curious about other things, you'll become more extrovert as you find people becoming more and more interesting. So this is what they call a positive or upward spiral. You want, like, the brass tacks of how to do it, that's how you do it, right? So, and as such, pain is the same, is similar, right? In the sense that, like, it's not the same, obviously, because pain is unpleasant and love is pleasant, right? So, like, Spirituality 101 is an attractive process where it's like, and it's super important. Some people are missing that. A lot of people who are miserable in life, you know, and I'm just being honest, you know, if you find yourself to be miserable, depressed, it's probably because you're not doing enough of 101. And 101 takes honesty and bravery. And this is something I'm going to go into in this entry, right? So, yeah, and pain, the more that you delve into it, like Spirituality 2.0, which is, like, looking at the things that within yourself that aren't pleasant, that you wish weren't there and didn't exist, but they do exist. You know, Spirituality 2.0, shadow work, right? You realize that, like, it's the feeling, right? So, like, the person that pisses you off, like your family members that don't understand what you're trying to do, and indirectly, like, cage you in and stop you from being able to become more of yourself and to discover more of yourself and to live a good life and a fulfilling life. The friends that, again, don't see you fully, the society that is so full of distraction and Machiavellianism and like just like people focusing on the wrong things, politics, a lot of like coping and not enough like expanding, a lot of pointless disputes, a lot of violence, a lot of misery that could all it takes is for these people to just like, why don't people just look at themselves and listen to their souls, as a sensitive person, like, it's like, why don't they do that, right? But like, as these things pile onto you and they beat you down and they cut into you and they stab into your heart, as violent as that is, but like, as the world makes you more despairful, you recognize that like every single time the thing that comes up is that despair, that pain, that feeling, right? And as you become more aware that this feeling is an entity within itself, like the feeling as opposed, so like there's two components. There's things that happen, words that are said, people who exist, systems that don't work, all of these external symbolic things, versus there's the energy that they create within you, pain. And that thing is the same every single time. And there are different grades of it, there's jealousy, there's anger, rage, vengeance, all of these different things, right? But you recognize that these things remain, like, they're like, they show up every single time, right? And so, like, as you gain awareness of these things, you can actually sit with them, knowing what they are now, and being like, okay, what is this showing me? Like I said, maybe it is showing me that I hate people. Maybe it is showing me that, like, I hate myself. Maybe it's showing me that I'm really displeased with society, right? And, like, it's natural to want to do something in response to that. Maybe you want to yell at that neighbor who keeps stomping up on like, the floor above you, as I sure do, right? Like, maybe you do want to like talk back to your parents, like, or like just give them a piece of your mind because they don't understand what you're saying. Maybe you do want to like punish yourself and be hard on yourself because like you have every opportunity and you don't take risk and you don't take action, and you're a loser. And you sit with that. One thing I recommend: do a vocal diary entry. Go to your car. If you don't have a car, like, find a quiet place you could do it. Maybe in the middle of the park. I go to the park all the time. In the middle of the field, and just do an entry. And sometimes I can be really angry. I've shouted in the middle of a field before. Like I've literally just been like, ah! Like in the middle of a field before, right? But the point is, like, you connect with it. You see what comes up. And you kind of treat it like a bit of a it's like a discovery process. You're like, okay, okay, something's wrong with me, like, so let me let it out and see what comes up, right? And the more that you do that, the more that you embrace your pain. And this is what I mean by going in the direction of your pain, right? That's what happens, right? And then, like, the more that you become aware of it, the more you realize it, like, that, like, the more awareness you have on it, like, the more the control you feel, like, the more empowerment you feel, because you're like, okay, I finally understand where this is going, right? And then, like, this is the key, right? Is like, this is expanding on what I said last entry, but like, you can then use that pain and understand that it's a charge that lets you, like, that gives you the energy to go out and pursue the things that you need to pursue. Right, so this is like how you organically use pain as motivation. You may have heard people say, like, no pain, no gain, and like, pain is like, use the pain, use the pain and push through it. It's like, this is what they mean, is like, you connect with it. Connecting is like a compassionate energy. It means you allow it without judgment. You say, okay, it is there, and I've tried running away from it. I've banged my head against the wall and it doesn't work. So, like, let me try and embrace it. Let me see what comes out. Maybe it really does mean I just need to be angry, but let me at least be angry authentically, right? And sometimes you're so angry you're not even thinking like that. You're just like, eventually you train yourself to be so in touch with it that you're just like, I'm angry. Because I used to be someone who was really kind of ashamed of being angry, but now, like, obviously I'm not shouting at people per se, right? But like, I know when I want to let it out, I'm more allowing of it now. I'm just like, I'm angry, I'm going to go outside and shout in the middle of a field or something, right? That's easier for me now, right? But like, but you, at the end of it, as your vibration then rises after letting it out and being with it and growing your awareness around it, you see that it's like, huh, wait a minute. So that kid, right, that came up to me and said Ching Chong Wang, right, it hurt me and it caused me to go down and go through this thing. But he makes me, like, what he said makes me want to succeed. Whereas if I'd sat at home, I probably would have grown depressed and more self-loathing. And I just sat there at home, right? But like, I went out and like some kid yelled at me, was racist towards me or whatever it might be, right? Disrespectful. And that itself, actually, it's like I want to help that kid as well. There's so many different elements like to it, but like, I want to help that kid. He's showing me something that I don't want to become. He's showing me like a part of society, a demographic of people who are stuck in the cycle of pain. And if I work on myself, eventually maybe I can give back to these people and show them that there's a different way of behaving and acting towards other people and living, where they don't have to feel like they have to like do all of this stuff just to get attention from people or whatever, right? And maybe this means that, like, okay, finally, like, it's like a kick. It's really, it's unpleasant, let's be honest, right? It is unpleasant, but like, once you're with it enough, you realize that, like, it is actually kind of a gift. Because it is that kind of, it's a bit of a push that makes you think about, okay. And like I said, there are two dimensions. There are two dimensions, love and... Well, they say that pain burns away impurities. Or, like, maybe that's something that I came up with. But, like, have you ever, like, whenever you go through a crisis, or when you see other people, or you've heard about other people going through crises, it tends to be the case that they like, something happens. Why do awakenings happen during, like, really, really, like, kind of massive crises? Why? It's because there's something about suffering and pain that, like, reveals your truth. It burns away the impurities of your life, distractions, indecisiveness, but it leaves you with, like, the vulnerability of being with, like, what the thing before you, the obstacle. I don't have enough money. I don't like myself. I'm lonely, and it leaves you with these things, right? But it also, like, once it passes, and you've been with it, it reminds you that, like, you know what? I didn't feel like doing music before, but you know what? I really love music, because music, in my experience, in my example, is like, music is a gift. I love playing the piano. I love singing. I love making music. I love listening to music. I think music is a beautiful art, and I'm so glad to be doing it. I love spirituality, or conscious development, as I put it. I love all of the things I love. So it reveals to you what is before you, what your real problems, if you will, or your real challenges, the things that you need to solve, and not the bullshit that like basically masquerades as things you need to worry about, but what you really need to worry about, if you will. Again, that's putting it a bit negatively, but like the things that you really need to focus on, like the things you need to get on with, if you will. But it also reveals to you what you truly love. And it's important that you get both of those. It's super important that you get both of those. Because most people only get one. Like they only realize that, like, they're a piece of shit. So, like, they become more and more miserable and cynical, and stuck. Because to them, life is just pain, right? Or, like, there's the people who, like, who end up drug addicts, basically. People who keep escaping and keep escaping and keep escaping, right? And it diminishes, right? Because, like, you stop, you're like, okay, well, I can't, like, I don't want to go through the hard work of doing this because I don't think that I could do this, right? But yeah, but, like, that's what pain does. Is that it gives you an opportunity to become more of who you truly are. if you allow the transformation to happen, and that takes courage. It really does. Anyway, so it turns out that like I rambled on a bit too much in this entry about like trying to introduce this whole concept. So like I think that I will leave this here, and then in the next entry I'll talk about what I was actually trying to talk about in this entry, right? So in summary for this entry, just a bit of ideas, like a few ideas from me, you know. So like expanding on what I was talking about, we really are in a time where we are being called to take action, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this. I'm sure like every other kind of light worker, consciousness teacher, I guess, or like any conscious person is already understanding this and trying to preach it to the whole world, you know, or like bring it, gift it upon the world. It's this consciousness of like, okay, life is hard. There's a lot of things happening, but it's also an opportunity for us. So like we have to budge, but because we have to budge, we can budge in a direction that is the most aligned with us, you know. So that's why I say embrace your love and embrace your pain, in the direction of your joy, in the direction of your pain. This is the future, and we're all in like the best position, a truly blessed position to be here right now, to be able to create this life for ourselves. And I am excited for this. So cool. In the next entry, what I will be talking about is then, like I mentioned in that earlier example, or like earlier explanation. Well, so last entry I talked about the irony of like modern society and loneliness and mediocrity, right? In the next entry I want to talk about love and pain, and the common misconception that people have regarding those two things that kind of keeps them stuck. And like how you can then, with that understanding, take it and go, you know. So cool. I hope that was insightful. Look forward to next week's entry. And as always, I hope you're doing great. I hope you guys are continuing to go on your path, you know, and make your lives awesome and make the world, like people in the world, their lives awesome too. So cool. I love you, and thank you very much for watching. Any comments, leave them below, and I will catch you guys in the next entry. Bo Jinjin Vlog. Peace out, guys. I love you.